Hi! In today's video we are finishing off the second part of the Lam bag making Bible book, plus the announcing the giveaway. Hi! Hi! Right, so today's video is all about the second part of the Lam the bag making Bible book and announcing the winners of the giveaway. Can everybody hear me? Give me those thumbs up and those hearts, just let me know that you can hear me, please. That'd be brilliant, thank you. Right. Hello. Thank you. Someone did. Right, so for those new in the group, I'm Becky Alexander Frost, or Becky, or as parents call me, Oi. I've been bag making for 10 years and I've been sewing for 28 years. This Facebook Live goes every week within the group, where you can where I teach or give hints and tips of what I've learned from bag making. Okay, so in the comments below, if you can give a hi, if you can say where you're from, or what you've been up to, what you're sewing, or anything like that. So, disclaimer, just bear with me, Dad's just messaged me once again in the Facebook Live. Right, so disclaimer, everything that you see at the moment still is going to be back to front. I'm still working on it, of how to make things flip without filming from the camera side of the front of the phone, because then I won't be able to see your comments. But I have ordered a few pieces of equipment, but I do need a bit more, so please bear with me. I am getting there. I've had some rude messages come through saying it's back to front, and I am trying my hardest. I'm only a one-man band here, so yeah. Right, so yes, this is going to be back to front, but we are finishing off making this bag here, from the Bag Making Bible by Lam. I've been lucky enough, from the publishers, which is David and Charles Publishers. Had to make sure I got that right. David and Charles Publishers have given 4 lucky winners a book each, plus I've gone out and brought some stuff, plus there is stuff for the for my shop, like a voucher per winner. I will announce those winners at the very end. If you missed last week's video, if you click on the announcements within the Facebook group, you will be able to find the latest videos where you can see all the Facebook Lives that I've done in the past. And last week's video will be on there. I think we did it on the 30th of December. So it'll be on there. If you struggle, just private message me and I will send you the link where to find it. Okay, so today we are finishing off the binding part of the bag. I have pre-done parts of the binding already on the bag because it will get a bit repetitive within me showing you, and it is practically all the same going through. However, in the last video I said I will draw a diagram of how to cut binding, bias binding, because some of you don't know like the width and the weave of the actual fabrics and how to cut bias binding. So I will personally later on today draw out a diagram and put it in the group, because I know in future there is a few patterns that is going to come out in the from me that is bias bound. I think that's the word. Anyway, so I want to actually put a diagram in the group as in the file, so you can actually work out how to cut bias binding really easy and to basically sew it in your bag. So that is coming. There is going to be a sheet in the file section where you can actually print that off and keep it as a handy tool in a folder like I do. I have hints and tips in a folder. Okay, so today I will get started. Right, so I have actually already started, like I said, doing the binding on the bag. I have actually started the one swoop of the front of the bag. Let me put it there. So I have actually started the one swoop. I'm going to start on the back part. If you remember from last week, the bag is reversible. The bag I'm making isn't going to be reversible. However, I am doing it in a contrast cotton, so you guys can see it when I'm sewing. But I advise you, if you're going to make a dark binding, to use dark thread, because I don't know if you'll be able to see this. It's neat on the front, really neat, but when you go through the back, you can see where it hasn't actually caught the binding properly. So if you stick to a dark thread or a matching thread to your bias binding, you will actually not see where you've sewn. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cough and a cold. Right, so your bias binding is 4 inches wide. And then obviously you've got 2 short measurements to do. You look so worried, Becky. The video is amazing. Do you know what? I've had the worst night's sleep ever, and I've just had some sweets, and now I feel like I'm on a bit of a high. So yeah, thanks. I do feel a bit worried today. I don't know why. I just get like that sometimes. Right, so I've done, and I think it's because, and I said this to Michael, my husband, who is one of the admin, said, last week I looked a bit worried, and I know what it is. It's because I'm doing who I call my idol in bag making, and I'm making her bag, so it's like pressure, if you understand where I'm coming from. So yeah. Anyway. Right, so it's 4 inches wide, and obviously you've got 2 pieces which are small, which obviously are for your sweeps at the front and at the back, and then you've got 2 longer pieces. The 2 longer pieces and the 2 short pieces you press by finding your centre. So let me just show you. So you press it wrong sides together first, so it goes in half. Then you reopen it out, press into the centre to the wrong side, and then you repress it. So basically it gives you a neat finish. And also when you repress it, you're repressing the centre seam back in, so it makes the bag look neat. So I'm going to sew this piece on first. Now, as I'm doing a non-reversible bag, I will need to start from the lining side out to the front, because I want the bit that's seen the most, the neatest sewing. So I'm going to turn my bag inside out. I do apologise. The road is manic outside ours today because we live on the main street. They have got the roadworks going up down there, and basically it's very noisy. I wake up to traffic everywhere. So yeah. Right, so I have got it inside out now. Now I'm going to put the camera down, and I might not see any questions at this stage. Like I've said in the past, I will answer any questions that you ask through the video later on this evening when I get a chance. So I'm going to put you down. Right. So she says pin. I don't use pins, I use wonder clips. The only time I pin is in dressmaking or when I'm making a zip pocket. Right, so we're going to call the lining the wrong side, or the right side, obviously. And obviously with your binding you need to open it up with your right side of your binding pointing down and your right side of your lining up. And obviously because you cut this on the bias, there will be a stretch to it, so it will naturally go around that curve for you. So you're going to match it up edge to edge and clip that into place. Now you may get some bumps as you go along. Those will come out eventually when you're sewing. So we're just going all the way along, matching up those edges. And there you go. You will get an overhang on both of the ends. Don't worry, we will be trimming those off in a short while. So your first crease mark here, so you'll see the crease mark just about here. You'll be sewing along that crease. So I'm just going to put it under my machine. Now you need to push this bottom bit out the way as you sew. And because you've made it out of fleece, it will be squashable anyway. So I'm using a size 16 needle because I'm lazy and I haven't actually replaced my needle since the project that I'm working on at the moment. And I'm using a size 3 stitch length. And I'm not going to even reverse stitch at the start and at the end because we will be trimming it back anyway. So we're just going to sew slowly within that ditch of that crease. So what is everybody sewing at the moment? Now Christmas and New Year's out the way, and some people sew at their kitchen table, so they've got their kitchen table back. Right, so now I've sewn that, the next thing I need to do is, now Lisa doesn't mention this in the actual the book, but I noticed I needed to do it on the front one, is I need to trim the body back. So I'm moving the binding out the way and I'm just going to trim it back like 1/8 of an inch from the top. Because when you roll over the binding, it will sit a lot neater. And you will find that the binding will match where your sewn line is on the other side. So I've just trimmed that amount away. It's not much, it's minor, it's marginal. So now we are going to bring the binding over so it goes naturally over, and you'll see on here, you'll see where my sewn line is. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can see my sewn line. When I bring my binding over, it will just go slightly over where I've sewn. So I'm just going to clip that into place. Right, and basically where I've got this overhang, this is where a bit of overhang actually comes in handy, because I will start stitching on my overhang. So at least then I know I'm like less than 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here. Because I want it to be a really neat edge, I'm going to go really slow around that and stick into a stitch length 3. So if I make any mistakes, like that I'm not that close to the edge, I can make all my mistakes on this bit that's overhanging here, and hopefully correct it within that inch that I've got the overhang of. So in the past I've told you that when top stitching not to sew at a moderate speed. So because I'm top stitching now, but I'm actually doing it on the binding, I'm actually sewing at a slow speed. So it's swing and roundabout, so you've got to just work at your pace, work how fast, how you like to go, to make sure that it's neat, because there's nothing worse than not having a neat sewn line. Now I'm just going to show you a trick. If you've got a dressmaking awl or stiletto or a purple fang, is it? A purple fang. Because my binding here is not meeting my sewn line, I'm just going to pick it up, if I can get it, pull it into place and get my awl to hold it into place. As you can see, I'm holding it just by where the foot is. Now you probably can't see that from there. There you go. So I'm just going to hold it, put my foot back down and make sure. But you don't want to pull your binding too tight, or else you'll get a rippled effect within your binding, which once you finished your bag it won't look nice. So I'm just going off on the binding. Let's bring it back up. So you'll see there that it's a neat finish. So I'm just going to trim off this overhang here. I'm going to feel where the bag is. So the bag is round about here inside, and I'm just going to trim it off and do the same for the other one. Right, so that's actually a lot neater on the inside, that one is. Right, so I'm just going to put the bag to one side and talk about the longer pieces. The longer pieces I found, because I only had a small amount of lining fabric, I needed to cut, well, it tells you to cut one specific length, but two of those lengths. So what happens is it goes round here. So it starts off at your side seam. One of the binding does, goes up here, and generates your handle. So it generates your handle here, then it comes down to this side and actually finishes on the other side seam. So what I found out is my strips weren't long enough, because I was just using leftover fabric from other projects. So I had to cut 2 pieces for the longer piece here and 2 pieces for the back. With bias binding, it needs to be on the 45-degree angle, and even when you join the 2 pieces together, like I've had to join it on the bias as well, which is the 45-degree angle. So this is why I want to also put in the sheet that I've sent into the files later on this evening of how to join your binding, because when you join a binding for a quilt, okay, it's the same, but you cut it on the grain anyway, or on the selvage to selvage. With obviously this, because it's bias, you're cutting on the 45-degree angle, which is the stretchy part of the actual fabric. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Right, so if I open up this, I don't know if you can see it, but my two pieces that I've sewn together are at an angle here, which means that it's still got the stretch. If I was to sew them straight together and have a straight line, there won't be much of a stretch in that particular area. So yeah, you will need to, because there's curves on this bag, unless you've straightened off, because there's nothing stopping you altering the pattern and making it one straight bucket shape rather than a swooped angle. I'm just saying, you can change pattern pieces. So no matter what, like there's a person who's got my commuter backpack. She's added so much to it, like side pockets on the outside so she can carry water bottles. You can change the pattern. The pattern's there as a template, as a starter. So once you get more advanced, you can add things to it. Like I tend to add different straps and stuff like that. So get your mind working for those future bags that you've got coming. So you basically learn the techniques, make one exactly like it is, and then you might want to adapt it to change it down the line. Anyway, off a bit off the subject there. So once again, I've folded it like I did before, so I ended up in a 1-inch strip, but it starts off as 4-inch strips. But on one end of each of the sewn of the binding pieces, the two large binding pieces, I folded it over just over 1/4 of an inch here, and left one end raw, so it's not folded over. And you do that for both pieces. So I'm going to show you why we actually do that. It's just to make it a neat finish at the end. So grabbing the bag again. Right. I'm going to let you go down there. Right. Right. Can you see that? Yes, you can. Right. So the folded over part, I'm going to start right on where the seam is. And obviously the raw edges again, matching up the raw edges. And we are going to just clip it to this edge where the front or the back binding part is. So we're going all the way to that very top edge. Now a handy tip is, if you cannot feel this as you're sewing along, you can draw a line where the bag actually stops. So I say I will do that, but I can't do that because my chalk pencil's at my studio. But a piece of chalk or a friction pen there will actually be enough to make sure to remind you that you need to stop sewing. So I'm just going to plonk my clip there to know that I need to stop sewing round about that area. And then what you need to do is I'm actually going to fold over this end because I've just done that wrong. Okay, just ignore me. And we're going to unclip these. Starting off on the wrong side because I don't sew on that side. Right. So we're going to start off. We're going left to right. Sorry, I had to figure that one out, yeah. So we're going on the left hand side. Oh, it's like being back on Sewing Quarter where you make all these mistakes on live TV. And so you're making Eddie and Evie? Oh, Eddie and Evie are going to have some Easter costumes coming out. So whoever brought Eddie and Evie, there is more costumes coming out. And there is, yeah, some funky ones coming out. So yeah, so watch this space. The kids have been designing. They went off a bit paced when they realised Sewing Court was closing down, and they thought, oh, so does that mean we have to stop designing? No, because people have got Eddie and Evie. So, and Eddie and Evie will be coming back as doll patterns. So don't worry. Like I say, I'm just legally bound at the moment not to actually release any of the Sewing Court patterns until the 12th month is up. Right, so I'm only going to sew this part here that I've pegged, and I'm going to start about 1 inch away from that folded part all the way to where that top edge is. And this time I am going to reverse stitch at the start and at the end, because this is obviously coming to your last part of the bags where you need to make sure everything's locked, stitched into place. So I've started at the top edge of the bag and I'm working my way to the fold. And when I get to that fold, I'm stopping about 1 inch away from that fold. So I've done that mark there. So now I'm going to go and pick my other binding piece, which is, where's that gone? There. My other binding piece. I'm going to flip my bag over. Okay, and where you've just sewn the binding on, we are going to get the raw end of the other binding, and we are going to, now just hoping you can see this, we are going to overlap this on top of that folded edge. So it is like 1 inch over. Okay, open it up, making sure. So that's your wrong side of the one binding to the right side of the new binding on top of each other. And we are going, like I say, just 1 inch over. Over where that fold is, because that folded edge is going to give you a neat finish edge. And then we are just going to clip this into place, matching up those raw edges. And once again, I'm just going to sew, obviously this time from the raw edge to the edge, and I'm going to reverse stitch at both ends. Making sure there's nothing in the way underneath. Making sure it's flat as well before you sew it. There's nothing worse than generating a crease. And you're only stitching in that first top crease to the very end. and I'm gonna stop there. So now you will have, get you down, a complete sewn line here. Oh, it keeps flipping up. Okay, a complete sewn line around the top from the two top edges. Now we're going to flip the bag over and repeat that process on the other curve. So one of your bindings will be folded and one of your binding ends will be, one end of your binding will be folded. That's the one that you lay down first. But you've also got to make sure that it's not going to be where the handle is. Make sure when you run it round that it's not twisted. So I'm just making sure. There you go. Right. So it's not twisted. And obviously once again we're going from the folded edge needs to be lined up to where that side seam is. Okay, and we're going to clip him into place. Now when you do cut these pieces of binding out, because they are your handles, you have got to make sure you're precise on the length that you cut it at. So make sure it's definitely the length that the bag states, or the pattern states. Also you need to also make sure that your folds are around about the same as well, and when you overlap it's around about the same, because there's nothing worse than having one handle shorter than the other. So right, so we are just going to sew that bit into place, and remember to reverse stitch at the start and at the end. And we're going to finish an inch away from that folded line. So I've finished an inch away. Then we're going to make sure the binding of the other side isn't twisted, and we are going to overlap here. That's around about an inch over. Now, who is into pottery? Because one of my favourite programs is back tonight, the Pottery Throwdown. I love that. So who's going to be watching it? Right, so I'm just starting off, and I'm just going to sew over and then reverse stitch, making sure, feels like I've got something underneath but it isn't, making sure there's nothing underneath and it's not twisted, and once again just stitching within that ditch, going slowly. She says. Going slowly. And making sure you reverse stitch at the end of the bag. Right. So now, sorry, family keep messaging me when I'm on live session. So now you should have your binding a bit floppy at the moment. So we are going to just, Now at this stage you might want to run your iron over the folded bits again to make sure it folds over neatly. What you will have to do is, like I did on the front, is trim this back here. You only need to trim it back like 1/8 and 1/8 in an inch on the other side as well. So I'll just quickly do that. Making sure you don't catch any of the binding. I think it's on channel 4 or more 4 or more 4 HD. I really haven't got the foggies. I will actually post a link to what channel it is on, Rosemary, but it's a really good program. They have some laughs. It's a bit like, it's the same format as the Great British Sewing Bee. So yeah, it's going to get you warmed up for the Great British Sewing Bee. Oh, channel 4, thank you. I've just flipped over the bag and I'm just going to trim back the seam allowance, well, 1/8 of an inch on the other side. It's a bit more than 1/8 of the inch, but believe it or not, I actually didn't know inches until 18 months ago. I'm a centimetre and a millimetre girl. It wasn't until I actually took on to sewing quarter and all the patterns were coming through in inches, I had to learn inches. So yeah, so I kind of guess when I say 1/8. Right, so now I've trimmed it back. This lining piece, like I say, you might need to refold. So we're going to bring up the neat folded edge and we are going to roll it over. So I'm doing the raw side first, so I know, and I'm just going to clip that and clip it at the top. Then I'm just going to move that clip and bring the folded side over. So if you can see, a neat folded edge. And now I've got a bit of roll there. I'm just gonna, that's it. Bring that round, that's it. And clip that into place. This is where Perfectionist Becky comes in. And I can see part of my seam there and I don't want to see it. That's it. And then we're going to flip the bag over and do the other side. So starting off with the raw edge first, because that's your easier edge. The raw edged binding, that we'll leave the folded one at the moment. And we're going to clip that into place. Yeah, now Sarah Cox has left, hasn't she? She did like, because Channel 4, it never used to be on Channel 4, the pottery programme never used to be on Channel 4, so I think she left because the contracts are different on Channel 4 than BBC 2, because it was originally on BBC 2. So yeah, I'm a bit and ahhing at the moment, but I'll give it a go. Like the Bake Off, I gave it a go and I actually really like it. And same with when they lost Claudia Winkelham, I can't say her surname, but on the Sewing Bee, I actually really like the presenter on the sewing bee now more, so I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. Right, so I'm just moving over to the what I've called the edge, the folded edge of that binding, and moving it over to flip it to the right side of my bag. So as you can see, right, so as you can see now, I've got the, bring it back up again. So I've got the binding folded here and the binding done on this side. Now you'll notice the binding needs to be folded on this side, where the handle is, to match up. And I'll just quickly clip that into place. Now you could go one step further. Now, because these are quite floppy handles, you could go one step further. So if I work out this measurement here for you, which is this measurement here, and on the other side, you can actually put interfacing, a strip of interfacing in the bit where it makes the handle. So it's not floppy, if you understand where I'm coming from, because I must admit, a tote bag is floppy. They do have floppy handles where you can actually scrunch them up and put them in your handbag or in your suitcases when you take them on holiday and stuff. But I sometimes like structured bags and structured handles. I think that's from the leather industry. That's where I've come from. So yeah, so you could, in this part of the handle, actually put a strip of interfacing in. So there's nothing stopping you if you're like me where you want a structured handle, but I've actually just going to keep it as it is because I'm just following the book. So I'm just going to carry on clipping this, making sure the edges match up. You would obviously do this for both handles, but I'm actually only just going to show you the one handle, and I'll finish it off the camera once the live's over, because it can get quite boring. So I'm just going to start. Now I'm going to start, obviously, from the inside. I'm pushing out as much as I can away from the bag. And I'm just going to start where that fold part is, where the side seam is. Now, and once again, I'm doing it less than 1/8 of an inch away from the actual edge. And I'm just going to now where the bag finishes here, I am going to go back a few stitches just to make sure it's secure. You don't really need to do that, but I think I like it for safety precautions. I'm just going to go over and then just go back 3 or 4 stitches and then just carry on going. So I've just reverse stitched there. Now my stitching line isn't going to be brilliant because I'm rushing now. Now if you're really good, you can probably do the whole 2 handles and the sides in one long go at stitching the line, but I'm going to stop at the other half, just reversing stitching over that part. Now I'm finding that I will need this because where the folded part is, it will basically get caught up in the front of the foot. Right, so let me just take those clips out. Take those. Right, and let me turn the bag the right side facing out. Right, so I haven't obviously sewn the other side, but I will sew it off camera and take a photograph it later on. But as you can see, if I put that there, it's got a neat finished edge there, and it's neatly finished there. And like I say, those are floppy. It doesn't matter. The bag's meant to be floppy anyway because it's a tote bag, and obviously if you do the reversible, you can't have structure because you can't keep turning it inside out with foam. So yeah, if you wanted the handles to be a bit stiffer, you might want to overly starch them or put that interfacing in. But yeah, it is actually a really lovely bag to start off with. And like I've said in the past, this book, and I know this is going to be back to front title, but is one of the best books that you can ever buy when starting bag making. I've had this book for years and my template sheet is wrecked. But yeah, you can trace them off like I've done on parchment paper or baking paper. I think I've traced this pattern off now 3 or 4 times because, believe it or not, this wasn't the first bag I ever made. I actually went from dressmaking and quilt making all the way to a big structured bag, and it took me months to make, and I cried my eyes out because back 10 years ago there wasn't anybody actually helping you to actually, like this channel here, there wasn't people about, there wasn't, because there is if you're not already, there is a group called the British Bag Makers. There wasn't groups like that 10 years ago when I first started, and it was hard. So this is why I wanted to start off as a beginner and then working way up to advance and re-hitting beginners. So yeah, so don't be put off bag making. I know some people are still private messaging me saying, oh, that bag looks too much for me. It isn't, trust me. The patterns that I design are all coming with videos apart from the freebies. The freebies I will be doing sew alongs within the Facebook group. So we're all there to help. Ask questions. My team are really good at answering questions, apart from my husband. Here you go, yeah, that's nice. But it's not finished. So yeah. Any questions, please carry on asking, because I don't want people like me chucking bags in the bin at the start of their journey of bag making. And those people that are making tote bags, which you like get in the supermarkets, yeah, they're great to start off with, but progress. Your sewing machine's there to be used bash it to hell. It's there to be used. When I say bash it to hell, I mean, yeah, it's a luxury thing, but make it work. It's a workhorse. That's what it's there for. Make those better bags, give them as gifts, sell them. And that's the good thing about my patterns, is that you can actually sell my bags, the bags that you make from my patterns. I will not ask for any profit or anything like that. There is some designers out there that you need to watch out, because some of them don't like you selling the bags. So yeah, just be careful with any patterns that you buy. If you do pattern make to sell, just be careful, because some designers are a bit yeah. Anyway, so giveaway people, right? So they have been notified, the 4 winners, because I wanted to make sure that they were still in the group. So I have notified them. So the 4 lucky winners, I've had to write them down. Now, please don't have a go at me if I've pronounced your name wrong. So the first winner is Sally Limbert. Sorry. The second winner was Carol Saunderson. Yeah. Laura Winters was the third, and Lisa Broom was the fourth. Becky, dyslexia moment there. Two of you have actually got back to me with your addresses, so if the other 2 can get back to me, that'll be ideal. The prizes that they have won is a book each supplied by the publishers, so thanks to David and Charles. Yeah, David and Charles. Bag making kit plus a voucher to spend in my shop on the next pattern that's released, if they want the paper pattern. If not, off the next set of panels that are coming out. So the next thing is, I would like to say thank you for all the support that you've given me for the panels that I sold so far. Yeah, the new collection of panels just flew out. I couldn't keep up with Etsy. Etsy kept crashing for me, and some people kept saying that it wasn't going through. It's like I've had one lady today saying that, oh, it's gone through as dollars, but I'm in the UK. I think that's because just Etsy's, the amount of sales, I think I did 522 sales yesterday, and they're still rolling in today for those panels. So please bear with it. If it crashes, just keep logging in. If you double check, because there's been a few times where a customer has clicked to pay and it's taken 2 amounts of money out. So just make sure you've only got 1 email from Etsy, unless you want double amounts. Make sure that you've only got 1 set of amount gone through. Also, I want to say thank you on behalf of my sister in Australia and all I've emailed the company or the charity that we are giving the 600 and so much money, I can't remember the poundage, over to them, and they have sent me a lovely email which I will put into the group once I've donated. The response that I got, I'm sorry, I'll probably end up crying now. The response that I got was overwhelming from them. They couldn't believe that we had gone out and made that much money. And also, I am getting more donations, so the money is actually still going up. I think it's close to £650 now. So yeah, it is going up. People are saying they don't want to make the donation, but personally themselves they want to add it to the group, because I'm actually putting a note to say it's from the group. Also, I've actually said to them that I will send over a signed copy of the print as well, because obviously it's close to my heart. So yeah, thank you everybody that supported that group, supported that charity. It got me really upset over the weekend, and yeah, it's close to my heart because that's where my honeymoon is and that's where my sister is, and I know a lot of you have family out there, so yeah. Anyway, emotional stuff out the way. Starting next week is a 4-week series, so 4 episodes of a sew along for the Wesley Tote version 2. The pattern is a free download, which is in the group, in the files. If you haven't already downloaded it or don't know how to download it, give me a shout. I can talk you through what you need to do on your computer. You will need a printer to print it off unless you have the digital copy. If you don't have a printer and you don't like downloading stuff, within the shop you can order the hard copy. The hard copy is cheaper than the normal hard copies of any of the patterns that I release, because I don't really want to make much of a profit on those because they're already free within the group anyway. So yeah, I'm going to go down to my parents because those have arrived today. So I will package those up, and because I've near enough sold all of those hard copies and I need to reorder some more of the Wesley totes. So I will send those out tomorrow, and what day are we on? Wednesday? I'll send them out tomorrow on Thursday and going over to Friday. You wanted to shed a tear, I know, I still do, and this is how... I think this is the reason why I'm not sleeping, is because knowing my sister's in that country, I'm checking the news every day to make sure it's nowhere near her. And I know they're getting rain, but the temperatures are still scorching out there. And the side that my sister's on, they still haven't had rain. They've only had rain on the side that's the most worst part. So yeah. I keep checking. Anyway, I'm still getting tearful. Yeah. And I'm going to end it on a sad note. No, thank you ever so much for watching. So I will put in the group when the next Facebook Live is. It's definitely next week, but I never know whether it's a Monday or Wednesday because those are my 2 less busiest days. So yeah, thanks ever so much for watching. And make sure you tune in next week. Goodbye.